Buckle up, because here we go. Welcome to Courage and the Constitution. I'm just a guy digging behind the headlines to get to the nuggets of truth. I'm tired of the rhetoric and the propaganda. I'm being lied to by the media. I just want to know what's going on in the world. So let's do this. Now that we looked at the preface of Biden and Harris's wish list of constitutional infringements, let's actually get right into that list, beginning with the first step to their plan. Hold gun manufacturers accountable. In 2005, then-Senator Biden voted against the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, but gun manufacturers successfully lobbied Congress to secure its passage. This law protects these manufacturers from being held civilly liable for their products, a protection granted to no other industry. Biden will prioritize repealing this protection. Wrong! Absolutely wrong. And Joe is straight up lying to you right here. Just as in any industry, if there is an issue with a product, a production oversight or a weak part of the product that when fails causes harm to someone, they are liable. I am sorry, but this is blatant dishonesty and it just burns me up. Jesus, help me before I lose my salvation. Biden tells the public that the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act protects gun manufacturers from being held civilly liable for their products. Hard stop. That is where he ends it. He conveniently leaves out the rest of the act, which would read as follows. The Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act is a United States law that protects firearm manufacturers from being held liable when crimes have been committed with their products. Kind of a big difference there, isn't it? All right, let me put it like this. As I said in a previous video, let's say someone drinks, gets behind the wheel, and by consequence kills someone with their car. It is a painful and tragic, and lives are ruined. However, do you feel it is right for the victims' families to sue the manufacturer of the car? Of course not. That would be utterly irrational. If someone is stabbed and killed by a crazed individual, and the individual happened to have a knife of a certain brand, should the manufacturer of that knife be liable for the victim's death? Again, no. Not only is that irrational, but it is just plain stupid. I'm sorry. I have to call it for what it is. Now, if the gun malfunctions due to a production issue or something of the like, and someone is hurt, then yes, that is on the manufacturer. So why is Joe lying to the people about what the act is, and why is he trying to pass that act? Safety? We already have laws of liability due to faulty products that are intended to ensure safety. So no, not safety. Again, another lie of that party. So then why? It should be plain and simple with no questions. The whole plan is to sue the manufacturer out of business. Well, looky there. They are not abolishing the Second Amendment. But hey, they don't have to if the supply of gun production dries up. Well, that is except for those contracted by the government to arm whoever it is they want armed. Does that sound at all like maybe some infringement on the Second Amendment of this nation's Constitution? So to those who say, Joe Biden is not trying to take your guns, all the times that I hear that, Joe is not trying to take your guns. Look, I'm sorry. I try to be very patient with you, understanding even, but at this point, after years of having to defend against a never-ceasing onslaught of attacks, I have little patience left for you and your low-informed lack of the care for facts and arrogant stance that you take. Not only is Biden trying to take guns, it is his multi-pronged approach to also assure more guns, any guns, cannot be made. Okay, before I lose it, let's just go ahead and jump to the next point that he makes. Below this point, I'll read to you, there are then going to be 4 bullets. Ironic, right? Of how he intends to accomplish his plan. This next one, Guys, it makes me just as hot, because if you have been watching this series of videos, I've shown you how these vile-intentioned despots have created terms and words in an effort to deceive the culture. So far, they've done well, and they continue it with this next section. Get weapons of war off our streets. The bans on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines that Biden, along with Senator Feinstein, secured in 1994 reduced the lethality of mass shootings. But in order to secure the passage of the bans, they had to agree to a 10-year sunset provision, and when the time came, the Bush administration failed to extend them. I will address his plan to accomplish this in just a few moments. Now, I mentioned Dianne Feinstein and her zealous hatred of guns and gun owners and gun ownership a couple videos back, so no need to add more to that here. I also explained in the previous videos how these incredulous dictators use terms they made up, that weapons of war, for example, in order to scare the populace. I do not know how many times we in the gun community need to make this clear. These are not weapons of war. They're not even used in war. They're nothing more than modern sporting rifles. Oh, and that claim that the ban reduced the lethality of mass shootings? There are guns more lethal than these. And these are rarely ever used in mass shootings. So that statement is a non-issue. I could make the same issue and claim that the outlaw and manufacturing of selling nuclear weapons for private purchase and use has reduced the lethality of cliff diving. The two are they're irrelevant. Could nuclear weapons add lethality to cliff diving? Sure, I would venture to guess it would. Are they used with cliff divers? No. This statement is a conflating of two different issues. Oh, and the statement of blame that the Bush administration failed to extend the sunset on the ban of these demon lead projectile slinging death machines? There was no failure to extend anything. That was part of how the 10-year ban was worked out to allow the study afterward. What did the studies find? The difference the ban made was a statistic 0. Biden and the Democrats are chasing a boogeyman. Do you recall how back in the 1600s it was assumed that there were witches wandering among the people and therefore they were rounded up and dealt with? Yeah, that's no different than what the Democrats are doing with sporting rifles. Oh, and another point, do you have any idea how many estimated ARs there are in circulation in the United States? 10 million. 10 frickin' million. Yet this rifle factors into a statistic nil when it comes to crimes and murders committed using a gun. But let's go ahead and suffer through the Biden and Harris 4-point plan to literally not only not make us safer, but actually in the long run leave us easier targets to those who would wish to apply their will over us. I'll read on. Ban the manufacture and sale of assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Federal law prevents hunters from hunting migratory game birds with more than 3 shells in their shotgun. That means our federal law does more to protect ducks than children. It's wrong. Joe Biden will enact legislation to once again ban assault weapons. This time, the bans will be designed based on lessons learned from the 1994 bans. For example, the ban on assault weapons will be designed to prevent manufacturers from circumventing the law by making minor changes that don't limit the weapon's lethality. While working to pass this legislation, Biden will also use his executive authority to ban the importation of assault weapons. I can hardly believe that these conversations even need to be had. They claim that we do more to protect ducks than we do children. The last I saw, murdering a child is illegal, up to either life in prison or death. The last I saw, there were actually a ton of laws to protect children. The last I saw, we do not have armies of people going around with a shotgun trying to hunt down children. This is the trick that these people play. They conflate two completely unrelated issues, both practically and legally, in order to draw at people's emotions. The average ill-informed individual reads this and thinks, yeah, that's right. Those poor duckies can only be hunted by a gun with 3 shells in it. But our children can be mowed down with these scary weapons of war. And do you notice how Biden also talks about shotguns But then he goes into assault rifles, again, completely unrelated. But you know what? Can I play for you a part of Feinstein herself speaking on the issue back in 2013 with the new bill she intended to pass? Would that be okay? A time when they were not trying even as hard as they are now to disarm us? Let me play this for you.
Let me briefly describe the legislation we're introducing. We prohibit 158 specifically named military-style firearms.
The SIG P320 is a military-style firearm, literally a very commonly used pistol today. The AR just looks like a military-style firearm, but let's go on.
Since the 1994 law expired, there has been an influx of new models of assault weapons. These models are more powerful, more lethal, and more technologically advanced than the weapons were in 1993.
And still not factoring in much gun violence, as are all guns since that time. And no, Feinstein, what you are talking about are not assault weapons.
Our bill also prohibits other semi-automatic rifles, handguns, and shotguns that can accept a detachable magazine and have one military characteristic.
Well, that pretty much excludes any firearm, not just because most guns today are semi-automatic, but a trigger could be counted as a military gun characteristic. And this was back in 2013. You know what? Let's just move on to the next point of Biden's plan. Regulate possession of existing assault weapons under the National Firearms Act. Currently, the National Firearms Act requires individuals possessing machine guns, silencers, and short-barreled rifles to undergo a background check and register those weapons with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, the ATF. Due to these requirements, such weapons are rarely used in crimes. As president, Biden will pursue legislation to regulate possession of existing assault weapons under the National Firearms Act. Do you ever read or hear anything so tinfoil hat out of touch with reality that all you can do is just stare blankly and blink? Because that's exactly what I'm so close to doing here. Do you know why machine guns are not used in crimes? Any guesses? Because I have never seen even a lower-end beat-up one for less than $6,000. Those suckers are not cheap. Normally, a machine gun, just fully automatic rifle, runs between $15,000 to over $20,000, with rounds around 50 cents each. Can you imagine then the cost of running those guns just in ammo alone? They also have incredibly high taxes that must be paid on them. Do you think anyone who wants to go out and commit a crime is first going to invest $6,000 to $20,000 for his or her gun when they could just steal one free or buy one off the black market, which all the regulation in the world will not stop, for a couple hundred to a few $100s? Notice also the little slip-up Biden made here. Well, okay, so it's not really a slip-up, to be fair, since people don't actually really fact-check these claims anyway. Biden lists silencers under the ATF registration and tax umbrella, which is correct, and claims that is why crimes are not committed with them. Did I not say in a previous video that silencers are not used in crimes, yet they were an easy target, a low-hanging fruit for the gun control advocates to go after? According to the ATF, there are 1.5 million silencers out now in circulation. Anyone can get one. They are not used in a crime, not because of Biden's magical plan and government regulation. They're not used in crimes because they are not used in crimes. They are used to protect hearing for people who shoot for sport and fun. And one more thing. Actually, you know what? Let's just go ahead and move on to the next point of Biden's treading on the Constitution. Buy back the assault weapons and high-capacity magazines already in our communities. Biden will also institute a program to buy back weapons of war currently on our streets. This will give individuals who now possess assault weapons or high-capacity magazines two options: sell the weapon to the government or register them under the National Firearms Act. Do you see what's going on here? This is absolute stepping on the Second Amendment protections. Well, but Josh, you can still own guns. Why would you care about these? Why would you care? They aren't even factors in a crime. It's time to look at life through the lens of reality. A buyback is a separate video. But what I will say is that this edict is a tyrannical ultimatum. Imagine that. From your government. Sell the guns to the government under a program that costs millions and millions of dollars. I guess that'd be digging into that bank of that free healthcare y'all want. Selling them back, the government back, something that they never owned anyway, for pennies on the dollar of what somebody invested in them. A good AR can cost anywhere from $600 to several thousand. They usually pay you between $50 to $200 on a gun buyback, and oftentimes it's in gift cards. So sell them back, or pay a huge tax and register them with the government so that they know who has what, even though they are not used in crimes. But what they could be used for is to stave off tyranny. But the government can't have that now, can they? Okay, so the final point of Biden's plan: reduce stockpiling of weapons. In order to reduce the stockpiling of firearms, Biden supports legislation restricting the number of firearms an individual may purchase per month to 1. You know what? I can't. I'm tired. I just can't anymore. I can't. But you know what? Let me know. Let me go ahead now and just throw the ball back to you. I would like to hear what you have to say on the issue. Your thoughts, your agreements, or even your arguments. Let me know down in the comments below. And if you find this content of value and you believe others would benefit from it, then please like, subscribe, and share. Because really, it would do a lot to help us all out. I'm done.